Chosen one, this moment is not random. You did not stumble upon this message by curiosity or by coincidence. Heaven orchestrated the timing, the algorithm, and even the silence of your room so that this word could find you. The Spirit of God has been watching your internal war, the frustration, the sense of disconnection, the exhaustion of seeing corruption rising and truth being mocked. Yet in the unseen realm, your name has been mentioned before the throne. You are not being called to escape the system. You are being summoned to govern it under divine command. What you are about to hear is not inspiration. It is an instruction. This is the voice of heaven positioning you for the next phase of your mandate. Everything within you will begin to awaken, because this revelation is the confirmation you have been waiting for. The word now released carries divine weight. The Spirit declares, every corrupt authority on earth mirrors a fallen throne in the Spirit. Systems of deception, political manipulation, and social injustice are not random. They are reflections of a rebellion that began before time, the insurrection of Lucifer, the counterfeit of divine government. When you see nations bound by greed and leaders intoxicated by power, you are witnessing the shadow of that ancient defiance against God's order. You, chosen one, have been anointed to confront this reflection, not by chaos, but by divine order. The command from heaven is clear. Free the people from the grip of those who serve these invisible thrones, and do it under God's authority, not your own. Stay with me until the end, because this revelation carries your next divine instruction. Right now, you are being invited into a prophetic act. Write in the comments, under God's command. This is not routine engagement. It is agreement. When you declare it, heaven records your alignment. Your words are signatures in the courts of the Spirit, marking your participation in this heavenly operation. And as you do it, take another step of obedience. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, not as ritual, but as prophetic action. Each gesture of alignment opens new realms of revelation. This message is not entertainment, it is activation. What you will hear next will open your discernment to see how power operates, not just spiritually, but politically. So listen carefully, because the revelation that follows will change how you understand authority, government, and divine justice forever. Before we continue, I want you to know something. Everything I'm sharing here is just a glimpse of what's inside the manual of God's chosen warrior. It's a clear 10-step journey to help you rise in divine prosperity, to think like a ruler, walk in abundance, and manage the blessings God brings. The link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. You can check it later, or click now if you're ready to go deeper. Chosen one, corruption on earth did not begin in palaces or parliaments. It began in the heavens, in the rebellion of one who once carried light but desired to rule without divine alignment. What you see in the systems of men is only the echo of that original defiance. Every fallen authority, every government that manipulates truth, every structure that feeds on injustice is repeating the first betrayal. The enemy did not invent power. He corrupted it. That is why the Spirit of God is raising you now, not to destroy authority itself, but to restore it to its sacred design. Your anger at injustice is not rebellion. It is evidence that heaven has planted the seed of divine government within you. From the beginning, authority was holy. It was not meant to enslave, but to organize creation according to divine order. When God said, "Let us make man in our image and give him dominion," it was not a license for domination, but a call to stewardship. Corruption entered when dominion was separated from obedience. That same fracture lives in the heart of every corrupt leader. Power without submission, rule without righteousness. The chosen ones of this era are being called to reverse that pattern. You are not sent to curse governments. You are sent to heal their foundations. Your very presence in positions of influence is a declaration that divine order still has witnesses on earth. Societies replicate spiritual patterns, whether they realize it or not. When nations worship greed, they enthrone the spirit of Babylon. When leaders elevate pride, they echo Lucifer's rebellion. But when righteous rulers rise under God's command, heaven's architecture begins to reappear in the structure of the world. The systems that once enslaved begin to serve justice again. This is why your awareness matters, because discernment is the first form of deliverance. You cannot free what you do not recognize. The Spirit is teaching you to see beyond flesh and policy, to perceive the unseen thrones behind visible powers. When your eyes open to this dimension, you no longer react emotionally. You legislate spiritually. Many of the systems that control humanity today were built through invisible agreements. Deals made not only in boardrooms but in dark spiritual covenants, where power is exchanged for loyalty. Corrupt authorities are not merely immoral. They are spiritually indebted. They serve masters they cannot name, enforcing laws that were written in rebellion against heaven's truth. To break the chains, you must confront these invisible contracts. This is why prayer and policy must walk together. Intercession breaks spiritual legality. Righteous action reforms physical reality. You are sent to operate in both realms, binding in heaven what must be forbidden on earth. God is now raising a generation of rulers who can discern not just corruption, but the machinery behind it. You, chosen one, are part of that generation. The Spirit will not only show you what is wrong, but reveal how it functions, so you can dismantle it by wisdom, not wrath. This is why your process has been long and painful. Heaven has been training your perception. To govern righteously, you must see reality through divine intelligence. Moses was not just a prophet. He was an administrator of freedom. His staff symbolized spiritual authority, but his mind was trained for leadership. Likewise, your anointing is practical. You will not only speak truth, you will organize it into systems that liberate people. Throughout Scripture, corrupt thrones were never confronted by common men, but by those trained in divine protocol. Pharaoh was not moved by emotion. He was moved by decree. Nebuchadnezzar did not fear Daniel's opinions. He feared his revelations. Herod could not silence John because his words carried jurisdiction from heaven. These were not rebels. They were representatives of divine government. You stand in that same lineage. Your voice is not protest, it is policy. Every time you speak under the weight of God's command, you legislate light into realms that have been ruled by darkness. This is why the resistance against you feels governmental, because it is. We are living in a prophetic season where heaven is reclaiming territory within systems of influence. Thrones are trembling. Hidden agendas are surfacing. What seems like chaos in the world is divine exposure. God is dismantling the architecture of deceit so that righteous governance can be established. The Spirit is placing chosen rulers in unexpected places, in politics, education, finance, technology, to shift culture from within. Do not underestimate where you are. You might think your position is small, but heaven calls it strategic. Every place you occupy is a gate where light can enter the system. Your obedience is a key that unlocks national transformation. The chosen ones of this generation are not spectators of prophecy. They are instruments of fulfillment. You are not called to hide from power, but to redefine it. When you walk into a boardroom, a courtroom, or a parliament, you carry more authority than those with earthly titles, because your legitimacy is spiritual. You have been sent to restore heaven's pattern of leadership, justice as strength, humility as wisdom, righteousness as policy. God is not sending revival only to churches. He is sending reform through rulers. You are part of that reform. The Spirit is rewriting the map of influence, and your name is included in His plan. In this hour, liberation requires both prayer and governance. Intercession opens the heavens, but legislation establishes order on earth. You are called to bridge these two dimensions. You are the answer to prayers of generations before you. When you decree truth and design policy rooted in righteousness, you merge the spiritual with the practical. The kingdom becomes visible through structure, not just emotion. That is why heaven trains you in both devotion and discipline. Because miracles sustain revival, but systems sustain nations. God is preparing you to build what will last. Many are awakening to the reality of spiritual warfare, yet few understand its political expression. The war is not only in altars or dreams, it manifests in decisions, economics, and ideologies. To be effective, you must learn to interpret events prophetically. Every law that exalts darkness reveals a throne behind it. Every movement that promotes confusion is a campaign of a spiritual principality. Your mission is to stand in truth until righteousness becomes legislation. You are not fighting people, you are confronting powers. The Spirit is teaching you discernment that sees through deception, so you can lead without fear and liberate without violence. Nations may appear free, yet still live in invisible captivity. They are bound by fear, enslaved by information, and deceived by narratives that disguise bondage as progress. True freedom is not when chains are broken from wrists, but when they are broken from perception. As long as people think according to systems of manipulation, they remain governed by fallen thrones. The Spirit of God is calling you to be a liberator of perception, to speak truth that reprograms thought, to establish leadership that reflects divine order. You are a spiritual diplomat, carrying the Constitution of Heaven wherever you go. The authority you walk in is not rebellion. It is restoration of design. The hour of unveiling has come. Chosen one. Heaven is exposing what has long operated in shadows. Thrones built on deceit are beginning to crumble because the light of divine truth is now confronting them. What you see shaking in the nations is not political confusion. It is spiritual exposure. Hidden alliances are breaking. Secret deals are being brought to light. God is unmasking those who used authority to oppress rather than serve. But this exposure is not punishment. It is purification. For the Lord is cleansing the seats of power so that righteous governance may arise. You are witnessing not the end of order, but the end of counterfeit order. Every collapse you see is making space for divine reconstruction. The signs of this exposure are everywhere. Systems once thought indestructible are collapsing under their own corruption. Leaders once untouchable are being humbled before the eyes of nations. Financial towers are shaking, institutions are losing credibility, and voices once silenced by fear are finding boldness again. Do not mistake this for chaos. It is divine alignment. The kingdom of darkness is losing its grip because heaven has released a decree. Let my people go. Just as Pharaoh's empire was forced to yield under the weight of divine pressure, so too will every corrupt structure bow when the voice of righteousness is spoken through those anointed to govern. This shaking is not to destroy, but to cleanse. God is removing the foundations built on deceit so that truth may reign. When storms come, it is not to drown you, but to reveal what cannot stand. You, chosen one, are being trained to interpret the storm. Where others see instability, you must see opportunity. Divine chaos is the seedbed of creation. The void that terrified men in the beginning became the canvas for God's command. Let there be light. In the same way, what seems like societal confusion is actually heaven clearing the ground for righteous reform. The Spirit is teaching you not to panic when systems fall, but to prepare to build when they do. You are not called to fear the instability of the world, but to govern within it. Every shaking has purpose, and those rooted in truth cannot be moved. When you see kingdoms tremble, it is because the King of Kings is reclaiming his rightful place. The Spirit of God is establishing his government not in cathedrals, but in the hearts of the chosen rulers who will not compromise. You must learn to discern the difference between divine shaking and human collapse. One destroys, the other renews. When you perceive the difference, you will stand in peace, while others run in panic. You were created for such a time as this, to interpret heaven's movement and translate it into righteous leadership. Those without discernment will see these events and call them disasters. They will interpret the fall of systems as the fall of hope. But to the awakened, it is clear. This is the birth of new governance. The Spirit of the Lord is dismantling false dominions to establish His order through those who have been refined in silence. The chosen ones are emerging from hidden seasons, carrying solutions instead of slogans, authority instead of ambition. You must not let fear dictate your response to change. Fear belongs to those who have built their trust on corrupt foundations. You, however, are rooted in eternal government, the kingdom that cannot be shaken. Now hear this transition of the Spirit. What you are confronting is not merely human corruption, but invisible governance. The true rulers of darkness do not sit in visible chairs. They operate through ideas, through influence, through unseen hierarchies that manipulate perception. But heaven is revealing their blueprint to those who walk in truth. The Spirit of God is anointing your discernment to pierce the layers of illusion that keep people enslaved. Your warfare is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities that mimic legitimate authority. You have been chosen to discern, expose, and dismantle them, not through rebellion, but through righteous dominion. The hour has come for confrontation, chosen one. When heaven moves to reclaim authority, resistance intensifies. The battle you feel in your spirit is not confusion. It is collision. The light within you has begun to irritate the darkness that governs this world. Do not retreat. This pressure is proof that your assignment has begun. The Spirit of God is calling you to rise in calm authority, not reactionary zeal. You are not a revolutionary of chaos, but a restorer of order. When you speak under divine command, even invisible powers must bow. Now, prepare your heart, because what comes next will reveal the structure of fallen governance and the strategy of heaven to dismantle it through you. Every structure of fallen governance is built on imitation. The kingdom of darkness cannot create. It can only counterfeit. Corrupt authorities borrow the language of justice, but twist its essence. They speak of freedom while tightening invisible chains. They promise peace, but sow dependency. This is how spiritual corruption infiltrates institutions, media, and lawmaking. It disguises control as protection, manipulation as leadership, and greed as progress. These systems are not sustained by truth, but by deception repeated until it becomes culture. Yet heaven is unveiling this imitation. You, chosen one, are being equipped to discern the difference between divine order and demonic organization. The eyes of your spirit will no longer be blinded by eloquence or charisma. You will see through motives into the spirit that governs them. The tactics of darkness are subtle. It does not conquer nations with violence, but with influence. It seduces through ambition, offering power without principle and success without surrender. It infiltrates education to redefine morality, entertainment to normalize rebellion, and politics to sanctify injustice. Its goal is not only to rule nations, but to program minds, so that humanity defends its own bondage. This is why your warfare must be intelligent and your authority spiritual. You cannot defeat deception by argument, you overcome it by revelation. The Spirit of God will give you wisdom that exposes hidden manipulation and strategies that dismantle it without falling into pride or anger. You are being called to govern with both fire and clarity. Every system that enslaves humanity operates through counterfeit authority, power divorced from righteousness. It demands loyalty, but offers no justice. It commands obedience, but denies truth. These systems imitate divine hierarchy, but lack divine spirit. They mimic the throne, but reject the cross. God is raising rulers who understand that legitimate authority is born from service, not domination. You are one of them. The Spirit of God is restoring the understanding that power is sacred only when surrendered to heaven. True leadership does not manipulate through fear. It liberates through vision. Your influence must not mirror the corruption you were called to confront. Heaven is teaching you to govern with humility and to lead as one who knows that authority is stewardship, not ownership. In this generation, God is reclaiming leadership positions from those who have abused them. Thrones are being emptied in the spirit before they are vacated in the natural. There is a divine reorganization happening in heaven's timeline. Seats once occupied by deception are being prepared for those who have passed the test of integrity. The Lord is setting apart new Daniels, Josephs, and Deborahs who will stand in palaces yet remain undefiled. If you have been hidden, rejected, or misunderstood, know this: heaven has been protecting your purity for this moment. The time of exposure is followed by the time of enthronement. You are not being promoted by men, you are being positioned by God. Across the world, prophetic voices are rising in every sphere: politics, business, culture, and technology. These are not religious preachers, but divine disruptors. Their presence confronts systems of control simply by existing within them. They carry an authority that cannot be bribed, silenced, or manipulated. You, too, are one of these voices. You are sent not to fit in, but to reform from within. Your words carry the vibration of heaven's government, and when you speak truth, reality begins to rearrange itself around it. This is why your presence unsettles the comfortable and exposes the compromised. You were not designed to be accepted. You were designed to awaken. Yet this mission comes with inner warfare. The chosen one's greatest battle is not external opposition, but the loneliness of divine separation. The more you rise in discernment, the fewer people will understand your calling. You will face betrayal, accusation, and misunderstanding, not because you are wrong, but because you carry a frequency of truth that exposes pretension. Heaven isolates its rulers before it enthrones them. In solitude, your discernment matures and your voice gains weight. Do not mistake isolation for rejection. It is consecration. Every moment you feel forgotten, remember, hidden seasons are heaven's way of preserving what must remain uncorrupted before public release. When heaven reclaims authority, resistance always intensifies. Darkness does not yield territory without conflict. The pressure you feel is not proof of defeat, but confirmation of assignment. You are confronting invisible structures that have ruled generations. That is why the warfare feels ancient. It is. You are facing thrones that predate your lifetime, but heaven has chosen you to end what others could not. Stand firm. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. The authority you carry was sealed in heaven before you were born. You are not a protester, you are a legislator. Every word you release under divine command carries judicial weight in the Spirit. When you speak, the unseen realm adjusts. Now, the Spirit of God is ready to reveal the decree that will shift your understanding of power forever. If your spirit is recognizing this message, it's because you're not just called to survive, you're called to govern. Every chosen one must learn to lead with wisdom and prosper with purpose. That's why I created the Manual of God's Chosen Warrior. 10 steps that unite faith, discipline, and divine strategy to unlock real prosperity and financial freedom. The link is in the description and the first pinned comment. Don't just listen to revelation, walk in it. Click now and take your place in divine abundance. Chosen one, listen with the ears of your spirit. The revelation now unfolding is the heart of heaven's message to you. You have not been sent merely to observe corruption, but to dismantle it through divine legislation. The authority upon you is judicial. It does not argue, it decrees. When a vessel of God speaks in perfect alignment with heaven's intent, the spiritual realm must respond. This is the true meaning of dominion. Your authority is not emotional, it is lawful. The same way decrees from a king reshape kingdoms, your words spoken in obedience reshape atmospheres. When God said, "Let there be light," He did not debate darkness. He legislated it out of existence. In that same spirit, when you speak truth with divine authorization, corruption loses jurisdiction. The counterfeit thrones tremble not at your personality, but at your legal right to represent divine government. Understand this sacred law. Divine authority functions through alignment, not ambition. Heaven only backs what heaven initiates. When you decree what God has decreed, your words become weapons of law. That is why silence is no longer permitted. Too much has been tolerated under false peace. The Spirit of God is awakening your voice, not to echo noise, but to issue verdicts. Every word born from revelation becomes a gavel strike in the courts of the Spirit. Corruption survives where righteous silence reigns. But once a chosen one speaks under divine impulse, false authority begins to unravel. You must speak with clarity, not rage, with wisdom, not emotion, with righteousness, not revenge. The authority of heaven is always calm because it does not fear opposition. It knows its decree is final. There is a law in the Spirit called divine displacement. When light is spoken, darkness must yield. When truth is established, deception loses its ground. That is why your declaration carries so much weight. You are not simply encouraging, you are enacting legislation. This is why your discernment must remain pure. A decree that originates from self-interest carries no power, but one born from divine compassion reforms nations. Heaven entrusts this authority only to those who have been tested by obscurity. You, chosen one, have endured delay not as punishment, but as proof of trustworthiness. The longer the silence, the greater the jurisdiction of your future decree. When you speak, you will not just influence minds, you will shift the unseen infrastructure that sustains corruption itself. Liberation does not come by force, but by authority. The Spirit is reminding you, Jesus did not overthrow governments with armies, but with truth spoken under divine command. Moses did not dismantle Egypt's system with swords, but with words backed by heaven. Elijah did not confront Ahab through manipulation, but through revelation. These men understood that decree precedes deliverance. Likewise, your words must carry intention, precision, and obedience. You are not sent to scream into chaos, but to command order. Heaven's government works through rhythm. When you align with its cadence, creation recognizes your voice. The same authority that calmed the storm will calm systems through your command when your faith is anchored in divine will. Moses faced Pharaoh with no army, yet every word he released was law in the Spirit. Elijah stood before kings and called down rain through alignment, not force. Daniel legislated righteousness from Babylon's court without raising a weapon. These are not stories, they are templates. God uses one obedient voice to confront empires. The Spirit of God is calling you to see yourself not as a spectator of Scripture, but as its continuation. When you understand that your mandate is governmental, you begin to speak as one seated in heavenly places. You are not beneath systems, you are above them, operating from divine jurisdiction. Speak as one who carries the signature of heaven. Speak as a ruler who knows that authority is not given to dominate, but to restore order. This is the pattern of divine governance. Righteousness legislates, and creation responds. Every time you speak under prophetic alignment, the invisible structure of society begins to shift. Heaven honors decrees of truth, justice, and restoration. That is why nations are transformed not by majority, but by authority. God does not need a crowd. He needs one voice properly aligned. You are that voice. When you decree integrity in your sphere, corruption begins to weaken. When you command justice where deception ruled, truth finds jurisdiction again. The law of heaven is simple. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and what you release in heaven shall manifest on earth. You are the bridge of that covenant. Every chosen one has a domain, a field of authority assigned by heaven. For some, it is governance. For others, business, education, or family. Wherever you are planted, that place becomes your altar of legislation. You do not need a platform to rule. You need obedience to influence. Heaven honors the faithful steward as much as the visible leader. When you decree truth in your environment, angels enforce it. That is why spiritual warfare follows obedience. The enemy only fights territories that threaten his rule. Do not be surprised when pressure intensifies after you act in righteousness. It is confirmation that your decree is working. Authority attracts opposition, but also divine reinforcement. Alignment is the currency of heaven. Power flows only where submission precedes action. This is why pride is the greatest disqualifier of divine rulers. The chosen one must never mistake calling for control. The authority you carry belongs to the one who sent you. When you walk in humility, your decrees carry eternal weight. The moment you seek recognition, your words lose power. Heaven trusts the obedient more than the gifted. You have been chosen not because of perfection, but because of surrender. The more yielded you become, the greater your reach in both the natural and spiritual realms. True rulers kneel before they govern. Beware of the false prophets of influence, those who imitate divine authority for personal gain. They speak loudly, but carry no government. They use revelation, to manipulate, not to restore. Their empires are built on charisma, not covenant. But their thrones will not last, for God is purifying His messengers. In this season, the Spirit will separate voices of spectacle from voices of substance. The chosen ones will emerge distinguished by fruit, not fame. Your integrity will be your crown, your obedience, your scepter. Heaven is making a distinction between those who speak for applause and those who speak for justice. You must remain among the latter, unseen but unstoppable. True authority is not recognized by title, but by transformation. When heaven sends a ruler, creation itself testifies through change. Corrupt systems fear the authentic because they cannot buy it. They will offer comfort to silence you, but you must remain anchored. The world measures authority by visibility, but heaven measures it by impact. Every life you touch, every structure you reform, every truth you release is a manifestation of divine governance. Remember, the throne you serve from is eternal, not elected. No system on earth can revoke what God has decreed. Heaven's government is not monopoly of religion. It is restoration of justice in every sphere. God's plan is not to replace earthly rulers with preachers, but to merge righteousness with governance. The Spirit is entering economics, law, and culture through yielded vessels. You are part of this convergence. You were not sent to escape the world, but to transform it from within. Your words are not sermons, they are strategies. Your prayers are not escape, they are legislation. The church is no longer confined to walls. It is expanding into government, media, and education through the chosen. The kingdom is becoming visible through those who rule under divine wisdom. The time of silent saints has ended. Heaven is commissioning those who have been hidden to now stand. The Spirit is stirring within you a fire to speak, to act, to decree. The world is starving for righteous leadership, and you have been chosen to answer that hunger. You are not being sent to compete with corrupt systems, but to outlast them. What is born of truth cannot be corrupted. Stand firm in conviction. Let your governance be an act of worship. When you legislate righteousness, you release heaven's rhythm into the earth. The divine order begins to echo through your decisions, policies, and words. This awakening marks the beginning of a new era. Prophetic leadership replacing performative religion. God is raising men and women who understand both altar and authority, revelation and reform. You are part of this generation. The days of separation between sacred and secular are over. Every domain now becomes divine territory when ruled by truth. The Spirit is calling you to embrace your role as both priest and king, to intercede and to influence. You are the bridge between heaven's purity and earth's policy. Through you, the unseen government of God will manifest in the systems of man. Now, prepare your heart, for the next words will speak directly to you. The vessel chosen to carry this mantle. Chosen one. This word is now personal. Heaven is speaking directly to your spirit. You have felt it for years, the pull between your desire for peace and your sense of purpose. That tension was not confusion. It was divine preparation. You were never meant to live quietly under systems of injustice. You were designed to challenge them by your very existence. Every time you felt uncomfortable in environments of compromise, it was the Spirit of God bearing witness that you were not made to adapt to corruption, but to dismantle it. Your calling is not to survive among the powerful, but to redefine power itself. Heaven has set you apart as a vessel through which divine authority will find expression. What others call rebellion, heaven calls restoration. The assignment over your life will provoke resistance because your presence threatens what is counterfeit. Darkness recognizes your authority even before you fully understand it. This is why your journey has been filled with rejection, not because you were unworthy, but because the systems around you could not contain your purity. You were misunderstood because your language is of a different kingdom. You were opposed because your destiny contradicts the agendas of men. Yet, in every moment of pain, heaven was shaping your voice, refining your discernment, and building your endurance. You cannot free people from corrupt authority if you still crave its approval. That season of seeking validation is over. Now, you walk as one validated by God alone. Every resistance you have faced has been a test of authenticity. The pressure, the isolation, the spiritual warfare, all of it was training for jurisdiction. You cannot govern what you have not overcome. The opposition that once wounded you has now become your qualification. Heaven never sends an untested ruler. The pain you endured was not wasted. It was currency exchanged for wisdom. You have learned the weight of silence, the cost of obedience, and the power of restraint. Now the Spirit of God says, step forward with calm authority. You will no longer fight to be seen. You will move as one who knows he is sent. The warfare you experienced was proof of your rank in the unseen. Timing in the kingdom is strategic. God does not promote by ambition, but by alignment. Many have tried to rise before their season and burned out under the weight of their own momentum. You have been delayed, not denied. Heaven was building your infrastructure so your influence would not collapse. Every closed door was protection. Every season of obscurity was incubation. The moment of unveiling has come. The Spirit of God is now breathing on your preparation. You are stepping into an era where your words will carry visible authority. The same divine hand that withheld you is now releasing you. Move in wisdom, for where others rush, you will be established. To govern under God's command requires integrity of spirit. The higher your authority, the deeper your accountability. You cannot lead what you secretly envy, and you cannot decree justice while entertaining compromise. Heaven will require purity not as perfection, but as posture, the continual surrender to truth. The Spirit of God is not looking for flawless vessels, but for yielded ones. Your power will not come from your eloquence, but from your obedience. Every decision must be weighed before heaven. Every word must align with divine law. The true ruler fears not men, but the absence of God's presence. Stay aligned, and no throne of darkness will withstand your decree. Now, hear the decree of commissioning. The Spirit of God says, I have prepared you in the shadows, so you may rule in the light. I have taught your hands to build, and your mouth to legislate. You will stand before those who represent power and speak as my mouthpiece. You will not be intimidated, for I have placed my authority within you. Wherever corruption has ruled, you shall establish justice. Wherever fear has silenced voices, you shall release courage. The systems that once resisted you will yield to the words I put in your mouth. You will carry my government in your decisions, and the nations will know that I have sent you. Chosen one, this is your commissioning. Walk in it with reverence. You are not a spectator of prophecy. You are its fulfillment. What generations long to see, you will live to establish. The prayers of ancestors, prophets, and martyrs converge in your assignment. Heaven is not waiting for another era. It is waiting for your obedience. You are the embodiment of divine strategy, sent to reconcile heaven and earth through leadership. The throne of your influence will not be built on ambition, but on righteousness. As you walk forward, the Spirit of God will amplify your discernment and multiply your reach. You will not just speak about change, you will legislate it. The time of preparation is complete. The time of manifestation has begun. Rise, chosen one, for heaven's government moves through you now. Chosen one, as we arrive at this closing revelation, understand the weight of what has been spoken over you. This entire journey has been heaven unveiling the hidden governance of spirits and how corrupt authorities mirror fallen thrones. You began this message seeking understanding, and you are leaving it with a mantle. You now see that your calling is not only spiritual but governmental. You were chosen to be an answer, not an observer. Every insight, every confirmation, every stirring within your spirit during this word has been a divine transaction preparing you for action. This is not the end of a message. It is the activation of a mission. This word has shown you that liberation does not begin with overthrowing leaders, but with confronting the unseen powers that empower them. You are not called to destroy authority, but to redeem it. You are not called to curse governments, but to rebuild their foundations in righteousness. This is why your training has been both spiritual and practical, because heaven does not separate the two. Your prayers open the heavens, but your wisdom establishes order on earth. You have been summoned to bridge the gap between revelation and policy, between altar and office, between heaven's purity and the world's systems. This is your assignment, to make the unseen kingdom visible through governance. Every crisis of power you see in the world right now is not a sign of hopelessness, but an invitation. It is a stage being cleared for righteous rulers. It is a divine setup for voices like yours. Systems are trembling because their foundations were built on sand, and heaven is looking for builders who will establish on the rock. Do not be intimidated by the scale of the assignment. You were designed for it. The anointing you carry is not fragile. It is forged for impact. You have been hidden until the appointed time, and that time is now. The Spirit of God is whispering, "Rise, take your place, legislate my will, and watch the nations shift." You were not born to escape the system. You were born to redeem it. The narrative of your life will not be one of survival, but of transformation. The same God who called Moses to confront Pharaoh and Daniel to influence Babylon has called you to stand in your sphere of authority. He has equipped you with revelation, refined you through adversity, and released you into leadership with power and humility. This is the hour for you to move from revelation to execution, from knowing to governing. You carry heaven's signature. Now you must enact heaven's agenda. Walk forward not as a servant of fear, but as an ambassador of the King. Now, before we close, if this message spoke to your spirit, don't ignore it. God is calling you to rise in authority and prosperity, to lead, to create, and to manage the blessings He's placing in your hands. The manual of God's chosen warrior is your next step. 10 practical and spiritual lessons to activate divine abundance and financial freedom in your life. The link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. Take it today and step into the prosperity and power God designed for you. Chosen one, as this message draws to an end, receive this decree. May your hands build what heaven commands. May your mouth legislate righteousness. May your presence shift atmospheres wherever you go. Every hidden gift within you is now activated for governance under God's command. May angels surround your assignments. May wisdom crown your decisions. and may boldness clothe your heart. You are not entering an ordinary season. You are stepping into your governmental mandate. Every invisible chain over your influence is now broken. Walk forward with the assurance that you are not alone. Heaven goes before you. Now, seal this moment with prophetic agreement. Comment "Under God's command" below as a sign of alignment. Like this video, subscribe, and if this message has fed your spirit, support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Your engagement is not just support, it is partnership with a prophetic mission. As you do, know that you are stepping into a network of chosen rulers rising in this generation. This is your confirmation, your commissioning, and your blessing. Govern under God's command, and never bow to corrupt thrones again.